So hey everyone, this tutorial is gonna be a quick one because in this one I'm gonna explain you about little bit just about particles. So I'm here in my Fusion page. As you can see, I have already opened my software and I have my project settings like this. RAM resolution is 920 by 1080 and RAM frame rate is 24. And I have opened this Fusion page. You can go to Workspace and click on this Reset UI Layout. Then you'll have a UI layout like me. You can click on this Effects tab over here, and by clicking over here, you can see that there are tools in here. And this Effects tab contain each and every tool that is present in our software. So let's go to Particles. And here you can see that there are so many particle nodes. But before telling you that, let me tell you something about this bar. I already told you that this toolbar contains all of the basic needed tools that you're gonna use generally. And here you have your generators, you have your color correctors, then you have your transform nodes, and here you have your mask, and here you have your particle nodes, and here you have your 3D nodes. So as you can see, by default, you can right click over here and click on this default. Then you will have the same toolbar like me, and you can see that here we have three main particle nodes. This is particle emitter, this is pMerge, and P symbolizes obviously particle, and this is pRender. Now these particle nodes are already set up for you in a way that you're gonna set up in your node graph also. For example, take this particle emitter and drag it to here, and you can see that my node is snapping to the grid. That's because right click on the grid, and you can see on here arrange tools, I have checked this to grid option, and when you enable that option, your node will snap to the grid. Now what you have to do is, you can see that we have this particle emitter node and this media out node. This particle emitter node, you can't see it, you can just make some changes in it. You can just see the particle render node, and in between obviously we'll put particle merge node. But this particle merge node is specifically for if you want to add maybe 2 or 3 more particle emitters, but we don't need to do that. So I'll delete this particle merge node and also this second particle emitter node. And now if I click on this particle render and hit 1, or you can click on this white dot, or you can drag it to the viewer, you can see that we have this 3D workspace. Now to move this 3D workspace, what you can do is you can hold Alt and then move it with your middle mouse button. And you can see that we can move it. And hit Control and zoom in it a little by obviously scrolling your middle mouse button, and scrolling it out will zoom it out. So we have something like this. And for some reason, if your view is like this, you just have to hit F. It will snap it to the main object here, and you can again hit Alt and move your screen. So as you can see that this is a sphere, we have our axis, 3 axes, Z, X and Y. What we can do in here, let me just show you. Go to this particle emitter node, and in particle render you can see that it's available in 2 options. Like you can even output it as a 3D version, or you can output as 2D. Now for example, if I click 2D here, you can see that we have this background. Now this alpha background is automatically enabled in order to have that 2D previewed on this background. For example, if I hit play, this default particle settings is already there. I'll zoom in it a bit. I'll go to playback and change my timeline proxy resolution full. It was set to quarter, I don't know why. As you can see now that we have some particles on screen by default. This is the particle emitter node with its default settings in 2D version. If I click to 3D, I'll go to render, pRender, and click here 3D, and you can see that we are back to our 3D workspace. Okay, now if I try to connect this pRender to media out, I can do that. But why? It's the same as we do with shape 3Ds. We can't directly connect this shape 3D to a media out. But why? Because we need this render tool. And if I try to connect that with the render tool, now we can see what's happening. So you need to render it as a 2D layer. And how do we do that? We do that with this render 3D node. I'll bring it over here And now you can connect your p-render to your render 3D, and then your render 3D to your media out. And all media out, I'll click 2, and you can see that we have this blank background over here. Obviously, you're not gonna view this as it is. You can add a merge node after it and hit control, and then add this background node and add this on this merge node. And you can see now your screen is black. Well, that's because your foreground layer is background and your background layer is containing all these particle nodes. So in order to switch these, you can hit Control T on the merge node, and this will switch the mode. And now you can see that you have your particles on this background. Okay, that was all about the basics of these particle nodes. Now you can play with these particle emitters and you can do a lot of things. Like you can come here and increase the number, which will increase the number of particles obviously. Now this variance settings in each setting is a difference setting. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, that's basically that it will have a differentiation in the number as well as in the lifespan and each of the setting. Okay, now you can see that we have a lifespan of 100 frames. If you will reduce that to 10, and now if you will play it from the beginning, now you can see that particles will be uh, having a birth and death at each every 10 frame. Okay, now you can do that with color and as well as this velocity, rotation and spin. And to add some movement, you can increase your velocity. That way you will have some kind of this you can add velocity variance to have fast movement to some particles and slow movement to some particles, and you can play with other settings also. You can change this angle, you can change angle variance. You'll have this kind of an firework thing, whatever. Now you can see that we have many settings over here like rotation and spin, but now because its style is set to point, you can't see the effect changing on the rotation. Well, what style? I'm gonna cover all these topics covering in detail about particles in my next video, and as well as I'll show some examples of particle avoid and particle bounce node. But till then, I can tell you what that means, and even I can show you some examples too. So let's begin with some of the particle nodes that we have here. So I'll delete this particle emitter and add a new particle emitter from here, or you can even type pEmittor by clicking Shift plus Spacebar, or you can go to your tools, go to your effects panel, and here in tools, click on particles, and here you can see you have a bunch of nodes. Now first what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this pBounce. Select this pBounce and drag it to my node graph and hold Shift and add it in between this particle emitter and particle renderer. Well, why I have added it here? Well, that's because I have to bounce these particles which are emitted by this particle emitter. Okay, let me explain. Now what you can do is you can zoom out a little bit, and in this particle emitter, change its region from sphere to rectangle. And now you can see we have this kind of a rectangle. I'm zooming in again with holding control and scrolling my mouse wheel. Now what I'll do is I'll increase its width a little bit, not that much, to maybe 0.4, and as well as a height to 0.3. And now we have this kind of a rectangle. I'll bring it a little up and I'll rotate it on its x-axis to -90. And now you can see we have this kind of a particle emitter. I'll pause it. I'll click in the middle of it and hit F again to snap it, as I told you earlier, and then Alt and middle mouse to view in my 3D workspace. Now what I'll do is I'll go to my controls, and in here I'll increase my velocity to something like 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 will be good, or maybe 0.4. Okay, but now you can see that it's going sideways. So what we can do is we can change its angle. So we'll change its angle to 270, hit enter, and I'll just keep this single viewer. And if I play from start, now you can see we have this kind of a particle shower coming from up to down. Very simple, very basic. This was just setting up the particle emitter that it's emitting from this above rectangle. Now what we'll do is I'll come to my pBounce, and here you can see that we have this very small thing. I'll zoom in it, and you can see that there's nothing here. Well, that's because in region it's set to line. Now we'll change it to rectangle again and rotate it. I'll increase its width and height to 1 and rotate on maybe not to my 90 but something like 65. And as you can already see that it's bouncing the emitted nodes, that it's bouncing the emitted particles from this pEmittor node. And now if I'll play, you can see it's working something like this. Well, that's a bit too harsh. To reduce it, what we can do is we can go to pBounce again, go to controls, and here you can play with elasticity. If I reduce it all the way to 0, you can see it's still okay. What I'll do is I'll click on this viewer and hit shift plus Q so that we have this quad view. Now you can move this one, but other three will have its each side locked. Okay, for example, this has this top side and front, and as well as from right side. Because you have reduced its elasticity to 0, you can see that it's falling something like this. The particles are coming and falling like this, but we don't need to do that. So I'll increase my elasticity to maybe 0.5 and increase my roughness to 20, or maybe increase my elasticity a little bit more, something like 0.05. And now if I'll play, you can see that we have this kind of an animation that the particles are falling onto a surface, and because of this roughness we have that friction. And for example, if you don't want the roughness, I mean you don't want the friction, you want bounciness, so what you can do is you can increase the surface motion just a little bit, not too much because it's very harsh. So I'll pause here, and you can see that it's bouncing, but you can even change the direction of it. We don't want that much, so I'll reduce it to maybe 2, and now you can see what is happening. It's coming, and some of them are like falling, and some of them are bouncing. This is the basics of pBounce node. I can use it in many ways. You can do compositing with it. So this is pBounce. I got a region, and you can change it to maybe sphere and increase its size again, and you can see that it works with sphere too. And you can even add a cube, again increase its width, height, depth. Okay, I'll reduce my surface motion to 0, or maybe increase it to 1. And what I'll do is I'll increase this variance also in here so that we have some kind of a differentiation between particles. And you can see how it's working. Well, that is a really cool effect. You can even make it like this so that the surface motion is really low. You can even play with this motion direction, in which motion you want to bounce it. Okay, and in region you can play with your this cube or any other thing which you want to add. Okay, I'll tell examples in my next video. Now this was the basics of pBounce. As you can see what this pBounce is doing, you are having this kind of a particle rain shower, and the particles are bouncing on this object. Now you can add anything. Instead of this cube, you can go to this bitmap and you can add any image, or you can add a mesh. Now I'll give you a detailed explanation of that also, but in my upcoming videos. Okay, recently I'm having some issues related to my exams and all, so that's why I'm not able to make all the videos. But yeah, that was the basics of pBounce, and this is the basics. You can even explore it more, and you can check all the settings on the manual. And yeah, so this is pBounce. Now let's check out pAvoid. So what I'll do is I'll hit shift and remove this pBounce from the pipeline. I'll go to effects, tools, and particles we are already selected. Now I'll bring this pAvoid and I'll add it directly to the pipeline. As you can see, the color is shifted. Now I'll release it and now it's connected to the pipeline. I'll close this effects panel, and here in this pAvoid, again I'll go to this region, and instead of line I'll select maybe, okay, I'll again select rectangle, increase the width, increase the height a little bit, and then again rotate it on the x-axis. Now, what is this pAvoid doing? It's doing nothing because particles are passing through it. So what does this do? As the name suggests, it will avoid the particles which will come and interact with the cube or rectangle, at whatever is the region of this particle avoid node. I'll go to controls again, and here I'll increase its strength. Now, as I'm increasing its strength, you can see what it's doing. So I'll reduce the distance, and if I'll increase the distance, you can see what it is doing. So it is basically avoiding those particles which are coming on the region of this avoid node. Okay, and with this distance we can select how much far or near we want that effect to happen, and with this strength obviously we can enable the strength which you want. And I'll click on reseed over here, and if I'll increase the strength, this will go something like this. Now let us change it from rectangle to maybe sphere again. I'll increase its size, and you can see that it's avoiding those particles again. Now, what's the difference between that particle bounce and particle avoid? We can do the same thing with both, right? You might have that kind of question. Well, that particle bounce is specifically dedicated to get that bounciness. But sometimes what happens is you just want the collision to happen, but not the bounciness to happen. Like for example, you have something in the background, so don't want to waste the time in rendering or maybe things like that to bounce that particular thing. So in that case, you can use pAvoid just to avoid those particles. And if you want to bounce it and you want to have a proper collision, then you can use pBounce. That's why I told you guys about pBounce earlier already. But these both nodes are for particle collision. As you can see, they both collide particles. So I think that I have covered all the basics of particle avoid and as well as of particle bounce, and I'll be covering all the other particle nodes in my upcoming videos, and I'll cover these nodes also in detail, but in my with examples, like what are the use scenarios of these nodes. Okay, that's cool that we have this kind of a particle effect, but how will I use it in my real life case? So I'll explain all of that and have a detailed video on that. But till then, here's a basic explanation of particle avoid and as well as particle bounce. So thank you so much guys for watching this. I hope that you like this one. And as again I'll told you that I'll bring all the videos regarding to each and every particle node explained. Okay. This is something which I also missed at my time when I was learning the Fusion page. I mean Fusion tools. So yeah, I don't want that to happen to any other person. So, and the best nodes or the most used nodes will be obviously your pBounce, pCustom and custom force, directional force, pTurbulence, and maybe pFlock sometimes. But yeah, main ones, and rest of them you don't need to use that much, because obviously I know that Fusion supports 3D and Fusion is a 3D software, but still, you should do these kind of things in a separate dedicated 3D software, for example, like Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, etc., etc., those softwares. So, yeah, that's it. So, thanks so much, guys, for watching, and that was pretty much it. And I hope that you like this one. And I'm gonna bring in some more videos really, really soon. Till then, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and press that notification bell. And please check all the videos I have already made earlier. You can go to my channel and check all the videos I have. I'm recently uploading motion graphics and kinetic typography videos also, so please check those too. Go to my Gumroad if you want any of those files or templates. So yeah, you can get those kinetic typos templates over there. I'll be providing the link in the description below. So yeah, thank you so much.